Today, we're going to let Flossie teach us that life really doesn't happen to us. It really does happen for us. Welcome to Sobriety Snippets for Women Over 40, where we elevate our mindset and trade hangovers for higher consciousness, one powerful snippet at a time. I'm Becca Jacobson, and I'm so glad you're here, gals. Welcome to Snippet Land. Welcome to Monday. We are still loving it, in the process of looking at some key ideas out of the amazing little book from Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It. You know, we're doing this book study a little different, gals. We're not reading through the chapters per se. We're pulling key quotes. And one of the things we're learning here that has nothing to do with the actual content is the power of slowing down when we're reading, the power of not surface dwelling. So we don't need to read a whole entire chapter or a couple of chapters. We read kind of voraciously or listen voraciously, and all the ideas just hit the surface. We can take one idea, one quote, one paragraph, one concept, and dig into it, and it's enough right there for us to practice for who knows how long, life-changing practices. That's really what we've been doing with this book, is pulling key quotes and applying them to our journey, our emotional journey to sobriety. Today, we're looking at the chapter simply called Love. And the interesting thing that I pulled out of this chapter for us is the idea that we often talk about here in Snippet Land, that life doesn't happen to us, because if life is happening to us, we're victims. Rather, we look at it as life happening for us. There's something to be gained from every experience, which is a tough pill to swallow at times. But Flossie agrees, and amazingly enough, it comes up in the chapter called Love. It's interesting to me, her chapter titles seldom reflect what's actually in them. But before we start today, I want to make sure you're aware that I have a series of guides and resources that I've put together in a little library for you. And right now, I'm talking about it because the newest guide in the series is called Radical Reinvention, How to Rewrite Your Own Stories. And we're doing that series on Fridays, but I wanted to mention it today so you could go ahead and grab that guide. In fact, if you go to the show notes and tap the link, you're going to get the whole library, and included in it is the Radical Reinvention brand new guide on how to rewrite your own stories. As I say, we talked about that on Friday, but I wanted to remind you, you can grab that link now and you can start working on your own stories. Very powerful. And of course, it's real simple to just go back and listen to Friday's episode. All right, so check out the show notes, grab your guide, and get deeper into Snippet Land and start applying what we're talking about rather than just, what do we call it here? Surface dwelling, right? Okay, in the chapter on love, here was the key piece that I pulled out, a few key pieces that relate to the idea of life happening for us and not to us. Flossie says, love is God in manifestation and the strongest magnetic force in the universe. Pure, unselfish love draws to itself its own. It does not need to seek or demand. Scarcely anyone has the faintest conception of real love. Man is selfish, tyrannical, or fearful in his affections, thereby losing the thing he loves. Jealousy is the worst enemy of love, for the imagination runs riot, seeing the loved one attracted to another, and invariably these fears objectify if they are not neutralized. Okay, that was a lot, but here's why I picked that quote. First of all, it's right at the beginning of the chapter. I picked that quote because it demonstrates for us how whatever we put out, we get back. And that means that life does really happen for us. It means that we've put it out, it came back, and there's something for us to learn, even if it's just the idea that we're not being loving enough. So as Flossie points out in this quote, unselfish love draws to itself its own. So if we put out unselfish love, which, by the way, very few humans do, unselfish love is actually almost unheard of. When we love someone, we want them with us, we want them near us, we want them right in our lives. Well, what if you love someone who wants to leave? Unselfish love would say, I love you, and if leaving will make you happy, please go ahead and leave. Like, hello, not. Who says that, right? But truly, that would be unselfish love. Well, we're not going to expect that much of ourselves. After all, we are human. But a love that is giving and supportive will draw unto itself its own. And the idea of jealousy and selfishness in relationships will bring back to us the exact same thing that we're seeing. And so this is why life is happening for us. If something's coming back to us like jealousy, if our loved one is attracted to another, if we're having a hard time in our relationships, it means we're putting that out there. It's a boomerang. It's life holding a mirror up to us and saying, you are behaving in a way that's attracting this situation unto you. So jealousy, oh my goodness, jealousy is the absolute worst. And of course, here in Snippetland, we're always talking about emotional growth. Rarely do we talk about the sobriety journey because it is not about the alcohol. Once we decide to give up drinking, we have to go on this emotional journey. And this is a huge part of it, recognizing that we're putting out into our world exactly what we're getting back. Flossie gives a beautiful example of a woman who was very jealous and it just about destroyed her relationship until she was able to turn it around. A little bit farther on in this chapter, Flossie says, there is an old saying, no man is your enemy, no man is your friend. Every man is your teacher. Right? Right? Isn't that what we're saying? Life is happening for us. Not only every man, by that she means, of course, every person, but every situation is our teacher. And if we can look at it that way, we step outside of victim mode, which is so important to us. Moving on, Flossie says, so one should become impersonal and learn what each person has to teach. And soon he would learn his lessons and be free. Right? That's what she's saying, that life is about learning your lessons and breaking free. Let me read that one again. There is an old saying, no man is your enemy, no man is your friend, every man is your teacher. So one should become impersonal and learn what each man has to teach him, and soon he would learn his lessons and be free. Now, just a reminder, of course, this is a 101-year-old book. Pronouns were not what they are today. Flossie is not referring to men. She's referring to humans. But the message is so profound and absolutely timeless. That's why we look at books like this. They do not lose their power. Human nature does not change. Pronouns change, but human nature, it doesn't change, gals. We do not change. And so we need to learn the same lessons. But if we become impersonal, meaning we don't take things personally, we stop and look at the person standing in front of us and say, what is this person here to teach me? What's the lesson I need to learn? Because if we don't and we resist it, we're going to get the same type of people showing up in our lives over and over, and we'll wonder why. Why do I keep attracting these types of people? Because we're not learning the lesson we need to learn, and we're also putting it out there ourselves. Listen to this from Flossie. Suffering is not necessary for man's development. It is the result of a violation of spiritual law. But few people seem able to rouse themselves from their soul sleep without it. When people are happy, they usually become selfish, and automatically the law of karma is set in action. Man often suffers through lack of appreciation. Let's look at this quote again. Suffering is not necessary for our development. Hello. I mean, really, suffering is not necessary for our development. Oh my God, I wish I knew. Hello. Honestly, it's hard to believe because there's so much of it. And when we talk about life happening for us, in other words, the things that come up in life are there to teach us something, doesn't that imply that suffering is part of the package? Look, you're going to have to go through this to learn your lesson. But here's what Flossie's saying. Yeah, that happens, but it doesn't have to. If we learn our lesson and move on, we do not have to learn it again. Right? As she says, each man has something to teach us, and we would soon learn our lesson and be free if we just learn it. So when people are happy, they usually become selfish, and automatically the law of karma is set in motion. When we're suffering, it forces us to stop and reevaluate what we're doing. It's all in the boomerang, isn't it? This is all from the chapter called Love. Isn't that interesting? A little bit farther on in this chapter, Flossie refers a lot to how money and love are connected. She says, follow the path of love and all things are added, for God is love and God is supply. Follow the path of selfishness and greed and supply vanishes or man is separated from it. What she's saying is that if we are greedy and grasping, the things that we're trying to grasp and gather up and be greedy about will just vanish, as she puts it. Supply vanishes, or we are separated from it. But when we are open and generous and loving, the supply comes to us directly from the universe. Follow the path of love and all things are added. And Flossie continues, so man, in ignorance of the law, brings about his own destruction. All disease, all unhappiness come from the violation of the law of love. Man's boomerangs of hate, resentment, and criticism come back laden with sickness and sorrow. Love seems almost a lost art, but the man with the knowledge of spiritual law knows it must be regained. Listen to what she's telling us here. All disease, all unhappiness comes from the violation of the law of love. We must love each other. We must learn our lessons and move on. We must understand that we are not victims. Life is trying to teach us something. And the only time we have to repeat those lessons is when we don't get the lesson and move on, right? Instead, we keep pushing against it. Anything we resist will persist. And so when we stop resisting the lessons and go, okay, well, maybe I'm just being a little bit selfish here. Maybe I'm not loving enough. Maybe I'm being jealous. Maybe I'm being suspicious. Maybe I'm grasping. Whatever the lesson might be. This is hard to do, gals. What are we supposed to be, saints? I mean, come on. And this is where it's helpful to have an external voice able to help us see our own blind spots. It's one of the reasons I insist on having a coach in my life. We need someone who can help us see our own foibles because we really don't see them very clearly. Self-awareness is difficult, and it is a huge part of this journey. In fact, self-awareness is how we grow, by being able to watch ourselves. So as Flossie says, all disease and all unhappiness come from the violation of the law of love. In some way, we're putting out resentment, hate, and criticism. I mean, if you're being loving, then you're not going to pull back resentment. You're not going to be putting out hate, resentment, or criticism. And those three things literally make us sick. If you're resenting something from your childhood, if you're resenting someone from your past, if you're resenting yourself, you are making yourself sick. That's why the law of love can heal it all. If you can love yourself, love others, understand that you're learning. Every day is a journey of learning and growing. Suddenly you move out of the victim mode and into growth mode, and these lessons don't have to keep coming back, and the same situations keep repeating themselves in our lives. Love one another, right? So our big takeaway for this chapter is the idea of letting go of resentments, criticism, negativity, fear, jealousy. Gee, not asking for much, are we? And turn around and give love and compassion to ourselves and others. And remembering that life is happening for us, but we don't have to be continually learning these lessons. We can learn them and put them behind us if we can see them clearly enough. Gals, this is this is heavy, and it's a little bit much for a Monday, but it's what Flossie brought for us today, and so here it is. There it is for us. Just a reminder, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's some really amazing guides. There's a guide on breathing in there, a guide on journaling, a guide on a 30-day cleansing guide. I even put a guide in that I made a few months ago on how to use AI in your journey, if you're interested in that. But the most recent guide I've added to the library is the Radical Reinvention Guide to help you rewrite your own stories, which is what we're doing on Fridays here. So today's a great day to grab that guide and start your journey, start taking action instead of passively listening. Thanks for popping in. Be sure to come back next time so I can keep your head on straight. Sending you buckets of love.